Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Green Man channel again this weekend, but this time I'm switching over to the fantasy side of the channel because a lot of the videos I've covered in recent days and weeks have been heavy metal focused, and fantasy has really taken a back seat. I just thought it would be nice to do a video for this part of the channel, as I say, which has kind of been very much forgotten about, and apologise for that if you are a bit more of a fantasy person than you are a metal person. As you can tell, wearing a Mordor t-shirt for the occasion, which says Middle-earth's annual Mordor fun run. One does not simply walk, which I think is a great t-shirt. I got a few Christmases ago. Anyway, back to the subject at hand, which is that I have been, I'd say, rereading, because although the first time I read the Silmarillion, I have to say not much of it really went in. It's quite a dense, thick account of early Middle-earth and the Silmarils, these jewels, which were forged in sort of early phase of Middle-earth by this sort of elf. Now this is a really sort of, as I say, it's a very dense and thick account of all the happenings. So you get a long sort of, at times it can feel like you're just reading a list of characters and a list of things, descriptions of things happening, which if that's not for you, the Silmarillion will probably be quite hard read. But at the same time, if you liked Lord of the Rings and you want to find out some really cool things about origins of characters, then Silmarillion actually might well be for you and is possibly worth a read. Now, there were some really fascinating things that I picked up that I hadn't remembered from reading at least the first 8 chapters of this very recently. And, you know, it's cool how you kind of realise that some of Tolkien's ideas are really interesting, and his imaginings of how his world would sort of build from scratch, where you have this Ilúvatar, this kind of first one, who then creates these holy ones, who then seem to become, or we see the creation of these Valar, which are like these spirits, if you like, or these, in the eyes of men, I think they would be seen as gods. And from the Valar, we then get the coming of the elves, and within the elves, we see some. And actually, this is where I discovered a few interesting things about the early elvish races, and that you had sort of the Vanyar, the Noldor, and the Teleri, and how they kind of spread all around different parts of Middle-earth in the early days. And you know, they were dealing with, I think, this Dark Lord called Melkor. And so there was a lot of kind of, a lot of the strife and the issues in this really early phase of Middle-earth seemed to sort of revolve around this Dark Lord, this mischievous one, who didn't really want to fit in with, you know, any of the good aspects of the worlds that Tolkien was creating here. And so he was kind of like the mischievous one, that's sort of this, I think we would see as this sort of Dark Lord character. And it's in Melkor where we see the sort of first troubles with some of the elves' story, and in particular with, I think, one of the sons of Finwë, if I've got this right. So this elvish king, Finwë, his son Fëanor, who turned out to be the character that actually created the 3 Silmarils, these three jewels, which is where we get to know them as plural, is Silmarillion. And we get to know these, how these 3 jewels originated, which is pretty cool. They were forged by this son of Finwë. Noting, I think Finwë was possibly, and this is where I might be corrected, but I think it seems like he was the first king of the Noldor, maybe. Again, these sort of really early, I want to call them races, these early elvish races or hosts. But what's really interesting I discovered as well was that I want to say the granddaughter of Finwë, of this kind of first king, was Galadriel. Now, you know Galadriel from Lord of the Rings films. So thinking about how old she must be, I mean, incredibly old. I'm sure someone in the comments can put in how old Galadriel was when she was in Lord of the Rings. That would be something I'd be interested to know. But I'm not sure how years would be measured in Lord of the Rings or anything like that. I mean, I don't quite know that much, I guess. But yeah, some interesting. Another really cool fact that I seem to discover was that Melkor, now his lieutenant was Sauron. Now we all know Sauron from Lord of the Rings, so Sauron has obviously been around for an incredibly long time as well, and he was the commander of this stronghold for Melkor, which Melkor kind of used as a way of seemingly defending himself and defending his lands, is what I got from that. So Sauron's like an early kind of accomplice of this Dark Lord, and of course seemed to, in the Lord of the Rings, be rather a Dark Lord himself. So interesting little facts there. I did also enjoy finding out, you had the emergence of these three elvish races, the Vanyar, the Noldor, and the Teleri. And it seems like there was kind of a bit of a separation with the Teleri. They kind of went elsewhere in Middle-earth, whilst Vanyar and Noldor mixed a bit more, I think. We got also, there was a very, very brief chapter, which was a kind of love story between Thingol and Melian, which I kind of skimmed through quite quickly. I didn't seem to be a part of the story, which captured my imagination too much, that bit. But yeah, some really good, really interesting stuff. Of course, yes, I think this sort of early part where we learn that Fëanor made the Silmarils, and as a result, Melkor, who had been kind of in league, I think, sort of, with Fëanor, had kind of been getting to know Melkor a bit. So there was this real, and Melkor obviously hates he hates the elves. He hates the good in them, and it turns out that he lusts after these jewels, these Silmarils. So that is where we can sort of see the start of, I think, the problems of Fëanor and the problems of the elves start to come about, because Fëanor becomes really quite obsessed, I think, with the Silmarils, but also Melkor sows the seeds of kind of dissent amongst him and his brothers, so we start to see some real rivalries going on there as well, which I thought was quite interesting. So yeah, I felt like there's another interesting fact that I may have left out here. Oh yeah, so we learn about the origins of the Balrogs, which Melkor kind of created, by the sounds of it. There's all these demonic spirits in a really kind of early parts of Middle-earth. So we kind of learned that the Balrogs are kind of ancient evil spirits or demons of Middle-earth, which was kind of cool. But yeah, so it's a really kind of, this is a good almost, if you're really into Tolkien and you're really into Lord of the Rings, you want to know more about the origins of certain characters from Lord of the Rings, or how Middle-earth even began. This is it's definitely a book for you. And this particular book I've got, which was edited by Christopher Tolkien, it's also illustrated by Ted Naismith. So you get some really cool illustrations in the book, which there's a nice example there. So I got this book ages ago, actually. I think in my other video I did Fancy to be read in Fancy February. I may have shown this book a bit there as well, as I recall. So yeah, anyway, I thought it would just be nice to talk a bit about that. I'm probably going to do a sort of part 2. I'll read the next sort of maybe next series of chapters that I managed to read through. My reading is generally a lot slower than my listening to albums, so that is part of the reason I think that the fantasy side of this channel is lagging behind a bit. I am thinking about doing a couple of other fantasy videos pretty soon, which may include the Game of Thrones TV series seasons ranked, so that could be an interesting one given the controversy surrounding some of the more late seasons of Game of Thrones. And I might also talk a bit about the development of the new Wheel of Time Amazon series, which seems to be making some progress in spite of all of the horrible things around the pandemic. So I will leave it there. I hope you enjoyed today's fantasy video. Join me again on the Green Man channel when you're next about. See you later.